welcome. How are you? And have you ever wondered what is it that makes some Indians live longer? What is it that makes some people live healthy up to their 80s, 90s, and hundreds, and why do others don't? Is there some genetic secret behind this? If these questions have troubled you, today we are joined by a guest on the Longevity Short who has spent the last couple of years trying to find answers to these very questions. Join me in welcoming Anuradha Acharya. Now, Anuradha is the CEO and the founder of MapmyGenome. This is an Indian genetic testing and research company. Now, Anuradha and her team, like I said, have been working for the last 2 years trying to find answers to these questions. They have recently published a paper in the peer-reviewed journal Nature Aging called Genetic Variants Associated with Longevity in Long-Living Indians. And Anuradha, first of all, congratulations for that. And let me start by asking you, did you find these, genetic secrets for longevity? And did you also try to check if you are carrying those genes?
First of all, thank you so much, Kavita. I think it's a great thing that you're doing a show on longevity because I think it's important for people to understand. And yes, I did, of course, check whether I have some of the variants. I definitely I have the FOXO3 variant, but we found we can talk about that a little bit as well. So I have some, I don't have all. So I have an interesting family history. So I have my Nanaji lived to 102, but then my Nani passed away very early when he was in her 50s. Similarly, I think on my father's side, there are people mostly live to 65 and 70. My dad lived up to 72. So my mom is healthy and very doing well. So I think I have genes on both sides, which are good and bad. And I think like most people, so I do have some variants, but I think, what I do is more to be able to say, if I understand what I have, how do I compensate for that? So I think I definitely checked for sure.
And of course, the FOXO3, the FOXO3 is an important one, and Anuradha will tell us more about that. But first, tell us this, if you were to explain to a person who is not from science, but is doing everything that they can to live longer, what is it that you have found through this research?
So I think what we find is that, see, people who live long, and I think this is more historically that in India, we found that only 0.4% of the population has lived long till 85 and above. So one of the things clearly is that, we didn't have the strategies on how do you manage it. So I think one of the things that we are looking at is there something in their genes that's making them live longer, right? And so when we looked at this study, we said, let's find all these people, and we removed all the people that were, related and all of that, because that will skew the sample in terms of what you're getting out of it. And then what we found was some very interesting things. And you can actually, we then looked at the pathways, which basically means that, if that gene is doing something in terms of how your body functions, can we relate it back to that, right? So one of the most interesting things was a lower heart rate, right? So people, there is a genetic variant that makes your natural heart rate lower than others. And you might have found that, in your friends or family, you'll find that some people naturally have their heart rates in the 50s, like their resting heart rates. The others have 60s or 70s, but it changes as you grow up as well, right? So I think that's one of the variants that we found. Then we also found variants that, that are related to heart-related conditions that made them live longer, because clearly, I think, that's an important organ of us. And then the mental health, some of the markers that were predisposing you to certain mental health conditions also were making you not live long, right? So I think those were kind of findings that we found, and we correlated it back to saying, how does this actually translate to your health in general? Because I think that's what is important for us to understand. So we put all those pieces together. And in the paper, we've also explained in detail on what are the findings, which specific marker that was found, but also then went back to the pathways to say, okay, this is how your body functions. And if you have a certain marker, how is this affecting your health in general? So your liver function, your heart function, and having less markers that were there in the schizophrenia and some of those other markers that predispose you to anxiety and others are the ones that we found were in lower numbers. So I think this is what we found. And then there is one marker that's highly talked about, which is the FOXO3 marker. And it was found in a lot of the blue zones. It was found in many populations and all that. So we did find some of that in our study, but we do want to expand it because we didn't find this to be the only marker that was there, and the correlation was a little bit lesser than we expected it to be. So we want to see if we do an expanded study, that if we find something like that in the population again, I think that would be very helpful. But these are markers which make you naturally live longer. But I do want to add that, health is not just about genetics. There are many other pieces.
Very, very, I mean, if I were to just summarize what you said, what you told us is that Indians are endowed with some Indians are endowed with genetic markers, which can protect their heart, which can protect their liver, which can also protect their mental health and help them and make them less predisposed to, say, neurotic or anxiety disorders and schizophrenia, etc. And all of this can help them live longer. Isn't that
That's
what
right.
you were saying?
Yeah.
Right. Now, one of the findings that got a lot of press was also something associated with height. Now, you did find that a lot of people who are shorter were living longer. Is that a generalization, or I mean, can we make that generalization?
So I think there have been previous studies that also found this. We were curious about that as well. And we did find a significant percentage of people that had those markers. And we found that in general, whenever I give this as a talk or I talk about it, pretty much everybody will tell that yes, that is true, and shorter people always feel very happy about it because it's about also how your energy metabolism and other things are taking place. So I think that we did find it statistically significant. What was also interesting was we have a collaborator, Professor Gupta, and I think when I was talking to him for the first time, he had written a book on these people who have lived long, right? And one of the things he found also was that, morphologically also they could see that they are shorter women and women were living longer than men. And the other thing he pointed out to me, which I always find fascinating, was that women who are not docile, like people who have like rebelled and, have been able to do something on themselves, they end up living longer. And in our family, my grandmother-in-law, she's this woman she's short, she's skinny, and she lived up to 104, 105, right? So it was like exactly fitting into that as well. So I think that was also interesting because I think if you are able to fight the odds, if you will, right, in society and others, I think also makes you your mind over matter, mind over body in some ways, right? So those factors also make an effect. But in our study, we couldn't look at the stubborn.
So I'm very interested in this. I'm a short person. So how short is short? I mean,
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I would say, like, if you are 5'2", under 5'2", 5'3", I think that is maybe under 5'4", 5", because I think in the Indian population we find that even I'm considered relatively tall, even though if I was in the Swedish population, I probably would not be tall, right? So I'm about 5'5.5", 5'6", which is reasonably. I'm above average in India, but anyone who is 5'2", 5'3" would still be considered a little short, right?
but of course, that's not a free pass,
Yes, yes.
right?
It's not a free.
It's not a
Nothing
free
is a free pass. I think I just want to add that, yeah.
So again, coming to the FOXO3 gene that you spoke about, you did say that it is found in a lot of these blue zone populations. You also found it in India. Now, you said it was statistically significant, but you would like to do more, right?
Yes,
More
correct.
research over there. But then do you think, I mean, were these from a particular area? Do you think that uh, there is a chance that we could have a blue zone in India that we're not aware of?
It's possible. I mean, I think the sample size that we had, which is 140, 50, is not as large. I think if we do an expanded study and then we find that there are people concentrated in a particular area. I think that would be a fascinating study, right? Like that if we find that there are more people in a particular location, I think that would be really, really interesting to study. We can also see if, I don't know where you are based in Delhi or Bombay, but
Bombay.
Delhi's environment, for instance, maybe even if you have the genes, that might be offset. So those kind of things I think will be fascinating to study the effects of the gene, the location, the geography, and if there are any other environmental stressors as well, right? So that could also be an interesting way of understanding that, do we have certain regions in India where we can foster that kind of a blue zone, because it needs one, I think when we study a lot of the blue zones, we did find that location, the community, and their habits, all of those also contribute. So that is another important thing that we need to look at.
Hmm. You also mentioned that you would want to, extend the study. So if, I mean, people who are listening in, people who are reading about this, if they want to participate, how do they get in touch with you?
So I think if they just write to us at info@mapmygenome.in, they can just tell us that there is, either whoever they know most, if their parents or even them are over the age of ideally 90. But the last study we even looked at 85 and above. So anybody they know who is aged over 90, and especially if they come from areas that we have not covered, we would really love to get that. And I think we are looking more at a study of almost 1,000 people. So anybody who's listening to this, if you know someone, please do get in touch with us.
So you could also then tell us if we carry those genetic variants like you tested yourself.
Yes. So for instance, I think we have a lot of, we do this genome patri. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but this is a test that we are doing, and we are now going to add a section that will help you understand if you have these variants or not. And of course, the main purpose of understanding that is to say that if you have or don't have, what should you be doing? What are the changes that you need to make in your lifestyle and in the place that you live in, or otherwise? Because I don't know if you can see, but behind me, I think I do a lot of things like looking at the air quality and others as well, because all of those make a big difference in your health overall as well.
So you may have the genes, you may not have the genes. Now, say I am a person who doesn't have these genes. Uh, what can I do? I mean, can lifestyle changes allow me to live to an 80 or 90 or even 100?
Absolutely. I think, one of the things we found is that, in some developed countries, you find that the lifespan has increased, right? Because there's obviously medical advances and other things. But I think today there is so much research that has happened that you can do also an understanding of the effect of your lifestyle on what has happened with your genome, the epigenome. So your genes are remaining the same, but the effect of your lifestyle is being shown on that, right? So today, if you did like an epigenetic test, you can see your biological age as well. And you can find out your heart age, your lung age, your liver age, and so on. Now, what you will find is that, yes, people who have the genetic variants, maybe, they are that uncle or that aunt who people say that, they eat this, they smoke this, they do all that. So it has nothing to do with all of this, but that's not true, right? Now, you may be somebody who has those variants, and therefore some of that indulgence has allowed them to still remain healthy. But I think we need to understand, so that how do you actually counter that, right? So how do you make sure that you make those changes so that you live longer? So I'll give an example. Right? Like we found the slower heart rate is likely to make you live longer. Now you may not have that gene variant, but we do have now techniques that allow you to be able to lower your heart rate naturally, or through medication, or so your things like meditation, your yoga, exercise, and sleep, and all of that will actually make you compensate for those things. So the idea is that can you do something to, and also how you eat. So all of those things make a big difference, right? People have found that when they do an intensive, like a course, or just stay in a place which is less of free of stress, sleep well, eat better, they find that a lot of their markers change. Right? Your blood markers change, your heart rate changes, your HRV changes, everything changes. So I think there are so many now ways to be able to understand how do you actually make those changes in your lifestyle that will allow you to live longer. Now that you know which kind of areas might be of interest to you, right? So if I don't have the variant for slower heart rate or all of that, am I doing the right things? Similarly, liver function, similarly, the other things, do I need to keep track of those levels in my body? I think those are all important things. And lifestyle changes, even though a lot of people say, yeah, it should just do exercise, healthy and all, but it makes a huge difference and people don't give it importance enough until they fall sick, right? So I think it's important that people understand that the earlier you make those changes in your life, the better it is. But it's never too late.
What are the other potential applications that you look for from this research? How can it really be used?
So it can be used by individuals for sure, right? Like, I mean, we're discussing how do you compensate with lifestyle and other measures. But the other thing can also be used is like, let's say your physician can use this information, right? How do they actually look at individuals and how do they make those choices? And another area where I feel this can be very helpful could be on a larger government level, right? So if you had data for, let's say, your whole population, of course, that's not that easy to do, but let's say we did it. I think that could be immensely helpful from an overall strategy for how do you devise the right kind of measures for this population. Or it could be useful for, let's say, you did this research for people who are, making, insurance, this thing. If we are able to find out how much risk there is in the population, I think that could be another area that can be useful. So there are many ways, both from an individual, but also from a larger group perspective, that how do you actually manage your risks, right? How do you understand what you're dealing with?
Right, and we'll wait for that. We'll wait for that study to come out from your end as well. But till that happens, what you can do is this: there are tools now available to find out what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, in a way, if I could put it that way. And even if you do not go for genetic testing, what you can still do, like Anuradha pointed out, is change your lifestyle to ensure that you live longer and live healthier. There are techniques available for that. It is just for us to, like she said, it is never too late to actually start doing those things, doing those little things that will enable us to live healthier for longer. Anuradha, thank you very much for spending time with us and explaining all of this. One of the things that we are, trying to do at Never Too Late is also focus a lot more on longevity research that is coming out of India, because I personally believe that we're not seeing enough of, coverage or enough of press about that. So that is one thing that we're trying to do. We're also trying to talk to the people who do this research, because I believe they are in a better place, like you are in a better place to explain it to us than, get it second hand or third hand from somebody else. So again, thank you very much for joining us. And to our viewers, keep watching the longevity short. We will do more of these interviews in future. We will speak to a lot of people who are associated with the field of longevity. So ensure that you keep watching the space, and you also subscribe to both the channel and the newsletter Never Too Late. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you. Thanks, Kavita.